I feel that, yeah, I mean, just not, if not a regular, but still, say, bi-semester interaction with the Yale student government or the NUS student government to kind of have feedback on what has worked there and what we can adapt is like a more tangible way of doing that. So definitely collaborate, because we're the only body which has the entire student mandate, as you said. But I think accept the fact that we're a new institution and these institutions have things to teach us, and just be receptive to that.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to know,
No.
I'm not going to speak again on the same topic.
No one speaks again on the same topic. We move forward quickly. Anyone else, or we'll go to Isaac's question?
I think for me, I feel that while there is merit in interacting with other institutions, at this current stage in time, we, as a student government, as a body, doesn't really have the student body behind it just yet entirely. And I feel like in that sense, for us at this current point in time, it may change in the future. Hopefully, it will change in the future. It's hard for us to be, like, as much as we want to be a representative voice, it's hard for us to do that if the student body isn't quite interacting with us on the level that we would like them to. So as much as they are reaching out, it's nice, or like it's a tad bit unrealistic at this point in time for me. I don't know. You feel free to disagree, but like in terms of like collaborations at the moment, I think the student organizations themselves have been doing a pretty good job in welcoming NUS students in, and Yale NUS students. I feel like there are a lot of students who are actively going out and reaching out to other organizations outside of Yale NUS as well, and I think that's been great. We should be, in a sense, helping to encourage that while we work on our own issues and then look towards expanding further out.
I have to leave, so thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
I think just building off Glenn's point, I think that's a great idea. Like honestly, like we don't, as much as we are represented in the body, and honestly, how much is the body knows about that or pays attention to that. You know, I've been in student organizations which have reached out to other student organizations, and I feel that's much more effective. People of the same mind or the same interests can are much more effective at reaching out to people at other institutions, SMU, NUS, Yale. And honestly, if you have that passion to reach out, like, go ahead. In fact, how the role of the student government in this situation would be, how can we make it easier for you to reach out? And you know, what are the resources that you don't have access to that we might have access to that can help you make that bridging easier? I think that's where we come in, not so much like, oh, we are your student government, hello, come talk to us. I don't think that's how it's going to work, and I don't think that's the way it should work. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
I have a question. So I think both Glenn, Timo, and Avery have both all raised interesting points about how government itself might not be reaching out to students. And maybe just as a bit of an explanation, maybe students are reaching out to their residential colleges or their student organizations. Basically, it means that people are having the conversations not with the student government, but with other individuals. In that case, where do you see student government playing this facilitative role, or should it be more proactive in taking care of agenda and forwarding it on the assumption that students don't need those conversations?
I guess one thing that I mentioned in my platform was just like a logistical role. So I think it's great that the student government doesn't have to just increase bureaucracy by being a link between every two people who don't need a link. But a lot of times, at least as a freshman last year, I've kind of wanted to reach out, but I didn't know who to go to. So I guess the student government can at least provide that ground information of like, if this is your problem, this is who you contact, and this is the email address to reach out to them. So yeah, I feel like remove ourselves from the bureaucracy, but provide the logistical backing that every student deserves in this college.
I feel like a little bit with that point, it kind of goes down to the conversations between student government and the RCACs as well, because that is a platform in which people are reaching out to in terms of like suggesting things or giving feedback about the college and things like that. And I don't know if your government has done this, but like in terms of having conversations with the rectors, the vice rectors, the college councils, who they're being called that now, and kind of establishing a foothold in as to like what the government can do for them as well, and like as in if they get the feedback, have some kind of communication pathway where the feedback comes to the government can proactively go out with that feedback and try to get things done as well. I do feel like a student government should be some kind of centralized body where all this feedback should be going to, so that you don't. So as it makes things streamlined as well. In terms I guess it's an extra bureaucratic step, but it streamlines the process as well if you have only one body of people who are advocating for all the feedback in the school. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I second Glenn's point in that student government should network with the college councils, because many students might be reaching out to college councils and student government may not know what the problems are. So if a student government can facilitate the discussions between students and the college council and provide the resources that the college council may not have access to, that might serve better for the students themselves to solve their problems and issues that they have.
I think I agree that like there has to be a network among all these like so many institutions in school, so many offices in school. But at the same time, I also think that some of this feedback is better given directly to a certain office, maybe like the RCAC if it has something to do with RC bonding. And then that's not necessarily something where the student government needs or should step in. And like by doing that, that may actually lengthen the process and increase the bureaucracy. So I think it has to like pick the battles, you know. So it's like the kind of things where student government can really have an effective impact on. I think that's the sort of thing that student government should busy itself with.
So I agree with these points, but the point that was just brought up now about picking our battles, if we do go in for like this sort of quasi-federal structure of governance with the college councils and whatnot, it would be important for student government to have a clearly defined list of topics that it has supremacy over, and a clearly defined list or schedule of topics that college councils can have a mandate over. You have this kind of delineation of duties among the college and college councils and the student government. It would be smoother and faster, so that if you have issues that are not purely concerned with the college council, but are pertinent for the college in general, the student government will look at it. But if it's something that's highly localized, it would be best for student government to stay out of it for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of speed.
Okay. Cool. So now we go to audience questions. You.
She has some.
Oh, well, too bad. No, I'm saying you one. Step up. Loudly in your best voice.
Big girl voice.
So I have a few questions, but for the sake of time, I will ask one. Was that loud enough?
Not quite loud enough.
So a lot of you mentioned, especially the ones in bachelor break and the other years, you mentioned connections between batches and connections with the administration. And I think that there have already been, the student government has already tried to negotiate with the administration. They've always tried to communicate with them to a great degree. What point, I asked, would it serve to improve these communications? What point, what would that actually achieve? And I ask this not to make things difficult for you, but because we've seen with past student governments, there's a certain way in which people get held up by the decisions that they're making, especially, for example, with regard to the mascot. Communication between not just the administration but also the student body. A lot of the student body ended up just voting for the sake of reaching quorum and then having the decision of the mascot forced onto them. And then right now increasing the visibility of the mascot for the sake of increasing the visibility of the mascot doesn't seem to have any point. So what can you actually do with regard to all of this? I mean, there is apathy in the student body, and is your goal as student government to change that apathy, or is it to somehow to communicate to the student body that the student government is important? And if so, how?
Yeah, no, so great question, great point. I think that apathy has been generated because of the attempts and I'll phrase it as trials and tribulations of student government. So the example you cited with the mascot involved a lot of voting, re-voting, in an ineffective system. And I applaud the elections committee this year for changing that and making voting available online rather than in the dining hall and sort of being pestered. And so I think that part of that as well is what I said earlier about communication. So we recognize that that was not a good method. We need to find new methods and more effective methods of how to engage people without being annoying or omnipresent, yet also being there for them. In terms of liaising with the administration, I think that Scott and Regina have done a fantastic job of working with President Lewis on a weekly basis, but I think that setting up regular meetings with other important faculty members, so the Dean of Students or the Dean of Faculty, and working with them on an individual basis, particularly the directors, will be important as well. And I think the other benefit we have here with this government coming in is that it has more time. So the last government was an interim government. The previous government before that, their terms were served with a big summer in between, which is a great opportunity to lose steam. And so I think by having one academic year, we can accomplish more and have more productive discussions that maybe the process will continue instead of this frequent changeover that's stalled.
Follow-up to this. There are already institutions that allow you to be represented. You yourself are already a part of the Dean of Faculty Student Advisory Group, and there's already a public affairs suite that actually draws from the student body itself. So as far as how would you as a part of the, not you, but generally, you as a part of student government reduce that redundancy that already exists?
I don't think it's a redundancy. I think that public affairs and Dean of Faculty, just as two examples, are two different things. And I think by having a division of labor, to go by the theme of MS2 this week, and like dividing and conquering is a good method, but I do see the need to sort of bring that together, and that's why I think the directorships that we will take on as student government leaders will facilitate that process in communicating with individual faculty members, but then communicating as a group.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.